This election is driving home the point that every vote matters, but in a reliably red state like Indiana, some voters may not feel that's true. WRTV's Cameron RIDLE caught back up with the organizers of Souls to the Polls to see how they plan to keep Hoosiers engaged for the next election, no matter how big or small.
Souls to the Polls went well. We transported a few hundred people. We obviously didn't transport as many as we would have liked, but our goal was to get out the early vote, and we can say we participated in the success of the early vote here in Marion County and the surrounding cities.
As ballots continue to be counted in both Indiana and around the country, data shows a nearly 60% turnout rate from voters in Indianapolis. Dr. CLYDE POSLEY, who led the Souls to the Polls effort, says despite those numbers, getting Hoosiers to return to the polls next time won't be any easier.
It is difficult to convince millennials, marginalized peoples, that their vote matters.
On election night, many Hoosiers were still in line waiting to go inside of their polling location when they got a push alert just 6 minutes after the polls closed, announcing that Donald Trump had already won Indiana, yet they hadn't cast their ballot. Grassroots organizers say that only makes it more difficult to convince Hoosiers that their vote actually matters.
Minutes after the polls close. That is the type of chicanery and shenanigans that makes it an uphill climb when trying to get people registered to vote, when people are trying to be convinced of the reality that their vote really matters.
POSLEY and fellow organizer TRACY Boyd are already planning how the group will stay active. Boyd says they won't disappear until the next election. Instead, they'll be working to educate Hoosiers on how the election process works and how their vote could be the deciding factor in local races for mayor, sheriff, city councilors, and school board.
It's super important because if you don't have something in your community, then that's city. And then if you have something that requires funding, it might be state or it might be federal. And if we tie those pieces together, then people may feel more empowered to be involved.
Cameron RIDLE, WRTV.
Several Hoosier voters tell WRTV no matter who they voted for, how they voted, or how long they waited, it was well worth it.
I think that democracy works because people care, and I think showing people in Indiana and people elsewhere that we care is important. You're part of a bigger system.
I 100% think it's absolutely worth it to vote, even if you might not have faith in the system, even if you are in an area where, you know, maybe perhaps your political ideology isn't as prevalent. It's still important to have that voice heard.
I think it was worth it because I want to be able to choose who represents us on the world stage, and I think that the only way to do that is to vote.
It's never too early to start planning for the next election. For more information about dates, deadlines, and more, go to indianavoters.in.gov.